And Putin, your turn is coming. You know, Donald Trump is the Scotty Scheffler of American politics and foreign diplomacy, and he's about to put a whooping on your ass.
There you have it, you guys. So coming out today, in the past couple of hours, I'm going to share with you what's going on here, and that is that the United States, we're hearing today, July 21st, 2025, take a look, sends Patriot missiles, and NATO vows a urgent response. This is happening right now. The U.S., Germany together are sending over these missiles. Take a look. Germany and the U.S. agree to deliver 5 Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine as soon as possible. Coming out today, July 21st, 2025. Russia says that now NATO is threatening World War III to start in the latest deterrence plans that could take down the Kaliningrad faster than ever before. And Russia issues a nuclear warning after Trump's weapons for Ukraine plan, which is being implemented as of today. And Russia threatens the West, the United States, with preemptive strikes as NATO looks to deliver Patriots as quickly as possible. That coming out a couple of days ago, July 17th, you can see. And as of today, July 21st, 2025, we are hearing that this is unfolding right now. So let me know your thoughts. What is going to be unfolding here? The pressure is being applied to Russia. Are we going to see them fold? Are we going to see peace? Are we going to see war? Drop your thoughts in the comments, war or peace. Let me know. What do you think is going to be happening next? But we're hearing that Donald Trump had put that ultimatum on Russia, saying you have 50 days to come to a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine. And if you do not, we're going to be sending over weapons to NATO to give to Ukraine to use against you. You will be hit with U.S. missiles along with secondary tariffs of 100%, to which within 48 hours, Russian President Vladimir Putin said, you are provoking a preemptive strike, nuclear attacks, potentially World War III. And now we're hearing just a couple days after that, Donald Trump coming out and saying, all right, the United States, Germany, send those missiles over to NATO to send to Ukraine to use against Russia. So July 21st, 2025, we are seeing a major escalation unfold here before our very eyes, and I'm seeing war pouring into the comments, and we will see. And as we saw in the headlines, they are saying this is potentially the beginning here of World War III. The warnings are coming out. Now, if we're going to be going to war here, I'm going to keep you up to date on everything. I'll be sure to share the latest articles. These are going to be linked in the description below. I cite all the sources, put it on the screen, read right from it so you can see it, know, and rest assured that it is the latest. If you appreciate that, do me a favor, take a second if you haven't done so yet. Hit that like button for me. Helps spread this out further while we're live. Helps the channel out a ton. Just takes a second. Thank you so much. Also, to stay up to date on whatever unfolds, whether we do see war or peace, I will keep you up to speed as it unfolds. To stay up to date, it's totally free. Hit that subscribe button. I'll notify you as things come out. And also, if you think that we're going to be going the direction of war, as I see it pouring into the comments, a lot of people ask, what do I do to keep my finances, my assets safe? Well, I would recommend that you look into gold and silver and talk to my friends over at Lear Capital. You can go to learram.com or call them at 1-800-411-2430. You can get free guides. They just sent me over a ton of guides on investing in silver and gold. You can get free information, talk to an actual person, no obligation, just free information. They're there to provide you with anything you need in terms of getting information to do your due diligence. They've done over 3 billion in trusted transactions with over 25 years of experience. I highly recommend my friends at Lear Capital, especially with the way things are going right now. It's not a bad idea. And what we've seen historically is, take a look. Gold is just going up. Over the past 5 years, it is hitting new all-time highs. Same thing with silver as well. Gold and silver, not bad investments if you're thinking we're going to war. So go ahead and check out my friends over at Lear Capital today. Go to learram.com or call that number. I'll pin their information in the comments for you so you can check them out for yourself. But let's go ahead and get right to this video footage so you can hear it, as we're hearing things are escalating significantly. A lot of these videos coming out just in the past couple of hours or in the last 24 hours. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Trey Gowdy, and it's Sunday night in America. Republicans continue to navigate small majorities, racking up legislative victories, while Donald Trump's patience with Russia is wearing thin.
I'm disappointed in President Putin because I thought we would have had a deal 2 months ago, but it doesn't seem to get there. It's all talk. It's all talk, and then missiles go into Kiev and kill 60 people. It's got to stop. At a certain point, ultimately talk doesn't talk. It's got to be action. It's got to be results.
Joining us is the Chair of Senate Budget, Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. Welcome, Mr. Chairman. You've been preaching sanctions for Russia for a long time. Some on the right said don't help Ukraine. Some on the right said bombing Iran would lead to World War III, which it did not. How do you see the current state of war in both Ukraine and the Middle East?
Well, the bombing action by President Trump to help Israel has really degraded Iran's nuclear capability. Here's the way I see the world. The Ayatollah in Iran is a religious Nazi. He's been hurt bad between us and Israel. His nuclear ambitions have been obliterated but not completely destroyed, and you got to watch him. So he wants to kill all the Jews, purify Islam, and come after us. Putin wants to recreate the former Soviet Union, the Russian Empire. He wants to take countries that are not his. In the mid-90s, Ukraine gave up 1,700 nuclear weapons with a promise that their sovereignty would be respected by Russia. Putin broke that promise. He's not going to stop until somebody makes him stop. So Trump has been tough on Iran, who is incredibly dangerous, but they're in a weakened state. And Putin, your turn is coming. Donald Trump is the Scotty Scheffler of American politics and foreign diplomacy, and he's about to put a whooping on your ass. What's going to happen here is that Trump is going to impose tariffs on people that buy Russian oil. China, India, and Brazil, those three countries buy about 80% of cheap Russian oil. That's what keeps Putin's war machine going. So President Trump's going to put 100% tariff on all those countries, punishing them for helping Putin. Putin can live through sanctions. He could give a damn about Russian soldiers. But China, India, and Brazil, they're about to face a choice between the American economy or helping Putin. And I think they're going to come pick the American economy.
All right, Chairman, Israel is our friend, but defending Christians is a passion.
Yeah.
Obviously, you noticed what happened. What is your reaction to what is going on in the Middle East as it relates to Christians being targeted?
Well, Christians are being targeted all over the Mideast. There was a Catholic church burned in the West Bank. I'm incredibly upset by that. I'm a unapologetic supporter of the state of Israel. As a Christian, you can go to Jerusalem and worship safely. As a Muslim, you can do the same. It's a very religiously diverse country. But what's happening in the West Bank bothers the hell out of me. You had a Palestinian Catholic church burned to the ground, and I want to find out who did it, and I want them to be punished. And if it was settlers from the West Bank, Israelis, I want them to be punished. So I'm going to write a letter to the Israeli government. I want accounting for what happened. Mike Huckabee, our ambassador to Israel for the United States, has been awesome. He's a great friend of Israel, but he went to the community in question and he told the people there that America would get to the bottom of this. And a young American Palestinian, 20 years old, was killed in the West Bank visiting his family. This needs to stop.
All right. Let me ask you to put on your budget chair hat for just a second. Reconciliation.
There you have it, you guys. Now they're switching over to reconciliation and the budget bill, but you heard them talking about what is going on with the conflict with Russia right now, Ukraine. And also I've got a lot of video footage coming out. They're going to get you some more updates as to what is going on here in just a second, as we're hearing that in addition to the United States sending this over, overnight, Russia launched a major aerial attack against Ukraine. High-level talks are hopefully going to be taking place here. But as I mentioned, the U.S. sends those Patriot missiles. NATO vows an urgent response. Germany and the U.S. agree to deliver 5 Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine as soon as possible. Let's take a look at this very briefly before we dive into some more video footage here. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius announced that Germany and the United States have reached an agreement to provide Ukraine with 5 Patriot air defense systems in a statement that came on July 21st today. The systems are expected to arrive on the battlefield as quickly as possible, claims Ukrainian outlet European Pravda. Speaking at the 29th meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contract contact group in the Ramstein format, which took place under the leadership of Britain and Germany. Pistorius confirmed the agreement. During my visit to Washington last week, I reached an agreement with Pete Hegseth that Germany will contribute to the swift provision of these 5 critically needed Patriot systems to Ukraine, he said. He added that in the coming days, we will coordinate with our partners in a spirit of mutual trust to implement these plans. Pistorius also confirmed that Germany will provide additional air defense systems and vital ammunitions to help Ukraine strengthen its defenses. Previously, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz confirmed that Ukraine will receive Patriot air defense systems within the coming weeks, with final arrangements currently being discussed at the level of defense ministries. U.S. President Donald Trump also announced earlier that shipments of Patriot missiles for Ukraine are already underway, with NATO allies and the European Union covering the costs. So we had heard that announcement from Donald Trump with his threats to Russia. We're hearing this is underway right now. Earlier, it was reported that German Chancellor Friedrich Merz announced that Germany is working to establish domestic production of Patriot interceptor missiles, with the first missiles expected to be ready by late 2026 or early 2027. So the United States and Germany both coming together, sending over those missiles, and we are hearing that they are supporting Ukraine right now with those. Let's take a look at some more information, though, as we're hearing that attacks have gone forward, even intensified overnight. Russia hitting Ukraine, and they are saying that they are sending those Patriot missiles over immediately, right now, in an urgent need. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Good morning, and thank you so much for waking up with us here on Live Now from Fox. It's Monday, July 21st. I'm Jeanne Francine, here with you for the next few hours to give you all of your breaking news alerts, top stories, and of course your live events of the day. As we come on the air bright and early on this Monday, we are following some breaking news as it relates to the conflict with Russia and Ukraine. The latest video provided to us here on Live Now from Fox on this Monday. We are learning from the Associated Press that Russia unleashed one of its largest aerial assaults on Ukraine in recent months, only hours before the UK and Germany are to chair a meeting to discuss U.S. President Donald Trump's plans for NATO allies to provide Ukraine with weapons. We're learning the attack killed 2 people and wounded 15, including a 12-year-old. That information coming from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on this Monday. The drone and missile assault on Kyiv overnight into this Monday underscored the urgency of Ukraine's need for further Western military aid, especially in air defense. This a week after President Trump said deliveries would arrive in Ukraine within days. The virtual meeting will be led by British Defense Secretary John Healey and his German counterpart. Healey said U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and NATO leader Mark Rutte, as well as NATO Supreme Allied Commander, will attend the meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. We're also learning this morning that Moscow has intensified its long-range attacks on Ukrainian cities, and analysts say the barrages are likely to escalate as Russian drone production expands. In a shift of tone toward Russia, the U.S. president last week actually gave Moscow a 50-day deadline to agree to a ceasefire or face tougher sanctions. We do know at this morning's meeting, British Defense Chief John Healey is expected to urge Ukraine's Western partners to launch a coincidental 50-day drive to get Kyiv the weapons it needs to fight Russia's bigger army and force Russian President Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. Trump's arms plans, announced a week ago, involves European nations sending American weapons to Ukraine via NATO, either from existing stockpiles or buying and donating new ones. The U.S. president indicating discussions were partly focused on advanced Patriot air defense systems and said a week ago that deliveries would begin, quote, within days. So a lot to follow bright and early this Monday as relates to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. If you're just now tuning in, good morning to you. We're following the very latest, learning that Russia has launched a major aerial attack on Kyiv just hours before high-level talks on support for Ukraine. As you can imagine, this is a developing story, so make sure you're staying tuned to Live Now from Fox for the latest developments.
There you have it, you guys. That just unfolding, and they're saying now those high-level talks have taken place, and the announcement is the United States, They are sending over those Patriot missile defense systems immediately, and Germany joining in as well. So this is taking place as we speak, developing today, July 21st, 2025. Significant escalation in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And Russia had warned the United States about this, giving nuclear threats and preemptive strike attack threats. Take a look. This just 4 days ago, and now this is the direction that we are going. So a lot of people concerned about this move. This is official as of today. Russia issues nuclear warning after Trump's weapons for Ukraine plan. Now, let's take a look at this. Like I said, this actually came out late last week, but it says Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov reiterated that Russia's nuclear doctrine remains in effect on Wednesday, 2 days after President Donald Trump announced that the United States and NATO allies will supply advanced weapons to Ukraine. A spokesperson for the State Department told Newsweek in an email Thursday in response to Peskov's comments, "This rhetoric does not improve regional security. We've seen these kinds of reckless and unhelpful statements before." Newsweek reached out to the Russian Foreign Ministry for comments via email on Wednesday. Here's why it matters. Since Russian President Vladimir Putin's February 2022 invasion of Ukraine, tensions between Russia and North Atlantic Treaty Organizations or NATO members have flared, with repeated threats of nuclear escalation. Russia has the largest stockpile of nuclear warheads in the world, followed by the United States. Trump has taken a different approach to Russia and Ukraine than his predecessor, former President Joe Biden, such as more directly engaging with Moscow and putting the U.S.-Ukrainian relationship on the rocks through hostile conversations and aid threats. Earlier this week, however, Trump announced that European allies will be able to buy billions of dollars worth of U.S. military equipment for Ukraine's defense. So here's what to know. During a Wednesday press conference, Peskov told a TASS reporter Russia's nuclear doctrine remains in effect, and thus all its provisions continue to apply. The response came after a reporter from the Russian state-owned news agency inquired about the status of the nuclear doctrine, which, among other measures, establishes that an aggression against Russia or its allies by a non-nuclear state, such as Ukraine, with the participation or support of a nuclear state, such as the United States, is considered as their joint attack. So Russia's nuclear doctrine is now justifying a nuclear attack against Ukraine or the United States, since they consider this a joint attack with Ukraine and the U.S., as Ukraine will be using U.S. missiles, we are hearing, and this is, they said, an urgent response taking place right now and being issued just a couple of hours ago today, July 21st, 2025. Now, let's take a look at some more video footage coming out, as we're hearing that right now Donald Trump is better positioned to deal with Putin and Russia, but right now he is not complying. We've been hearing that the rhetoric back and forth have been war threats, nuclear threats, World War III threats. Let's go ahead, though, and take a look at some more video footage coming out just in the past 24 hours, so you can see it for yourself.
General Jack Keane, retired four-star general. Those of you who watch this network, you know how brilliant he is, and how prescient he is, and how rational he is when it comes to national security, matters of peace and war, and how right he has been about so much. So I was very anxious to hear what you have to say, General, about the president's latest move, which I think is just incredibly brilliant. That's just me. I mean, with respect to NATO, it gets them to increase their contributions to 5%. Nobody thought that would happen. So they're going to muscle up, which is very important. And then he persuades them to purchase military equipment from us to give to Ukraine, because he sees that Ukraine needs military equipment to defend its cities, its infrastructure, its people. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, well, a couple things. Number one, I think the president demonstrated extraordinary patience in trying to work with Putin, you know, despite all the happy talk and playing tough on the battlefield that was going on for weeks and weeks, and then ultimately completely frustrated with him. And Putin wanted that to happen, but he thought the president would likely pull away from supporting Ukraine. And so Putin has miscalculated here. And what we got here is clearly the president's decisiveness to support Ukraine. And the second piece in that, so the American people truly understand, is that he wants to take the American taxpayer off the table in terms of funding support for Ukraine going forward. Much of this could have been done in the Biden administration, but they chose not to do it. This president is doing it. And what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, to understand this, there are still arms flowing right now from the previous administration and the Congress's support for funding that took place many, many months ago. So that is happening. It paused for a while, but this week, 155 artillery ammunition is flowing again because of the president's order. 2 PAC-3 missiles for the Patriot system flowing again, and HIMARS long-range missiles flowing again. All a good decision. Now, as to the future, what the president wants to happen and will happen is that the Europeans are going to purchase military capability from the United States, much as we sell it to other countries. Give you an example. We're about to sell 5 Patriot batteries to Switzerland because they wanted them. They're not a part of NATO. That's going to be delayed, and those batteries are going to go to other European countries, Germany, one for sure, and then those batteries will be given to Ukraine. And you mentioned it. What's raining down on Ukraine, this is Putin's major escalation of the war in 41 months, has been on the Ukrainian people. In the major cities, 400 or 500 drones a night with ballistic and cruise missiles. It's the ballistic and cruise missiles that are devastating because there's nothing there to stop them but Patriot batteries, and they're limited in doing that. So this is a decisive decision, and it's the beginning of considerable support for Ukraine without taxpayer funding. That is a good thing. The second part of this are crippling sanctions and tariffs. The president has given Putin 50 more days to think about, one, what he's doing in terms of his military support. And by the way, so our audience understands, Putin pays more attention to what happens on that battlefield than he does to sanctions, because he has always been able to get around sanctions, and the evidence is on his side. Now, these sanctions that are forthcoming, if the president has to use them in 50 days, are purported to be much tougher, and I assume they are. But the battlefield effects is primary in Putin's mind. So we're in a much better position here in dealing with Mr. Putin and attempting to get him to a negotiating table. And clearly what he's been doing, so our audience also understands this, the reason why he's pounding these cities, he wants to break the will of the Ukrainian people, so they put pressure on the Zelensky government to make major concessions to Putin at the negotiating table. The people in Ukraine, if you polled them today, they would tell you they would like the war and through positive negotiations that are favorable to Ukraine. They don't want the war to end at their expense that favors Putin. They would rather fight on than do that. So that's kind of where we are. This week, we are in a much better place when it comes to Ukraine and Russia than we were a week or two ago, for sure.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
There you have it, you guys. Man, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. He's saying we're in a better position with Russia and Ukraine right now. And they also said that what Trump did was genius. They said it was an excellent negotiation tactic, and that is going to be able to supply weapons to Ukraine, but have NATO pay for it. So now the U.S. taxpayer is not on the hook for funding this war anymore. And if you're glad to hear that, drop a 47 in the comments. If you're glad to hear that U.S. tax dollars will not be shipped overseas any further to support the Russia-Ukraine war, but now he is going to have NATO buy U.S. weapons, so we will still supply weapons to Ukraine, but taxpayers will not be on the hook for that price tag. Drop a 47 in the comments if you appreciate that. And if you haven't done so yet, take a second, hit that like button for me. But a lot of video footage coming out on the breaking news. As I mentioned just a couple of hours ago, the U.S. is sending Patriot missiles. NATO now vows an urgent response. Germany, as we mentioned as well, is on board sending those out. Russia says NATO threatens World War III. So Russia's responding to this in the latest deterrence plans that could take down Kaliningrad faster than ever. And as I shared with you, Russia issues a nuclear warning after Trump's weapons for Ukraine plan. And here's another one. Russia threatens the West with preemptive strikes as NATO looks to deliver Patriots as quickly as possible. And that was 4 days ago. And we're now hearing today, July 21st, 2025, this is underway. The United States is sending those missiles as we speak. Now, let's take a look at this article so I can remind you of what unfolded 4 days ago, and then we're going to look at some more video footage as to what is happening as of today. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev said Moscow should consider launching preemptive strikes against the West as the U.S. and its NATO allies ratchet up defense support for Ukraine. So preemptive strikes hitting us before things pop off. The statements of Western politicians on this topic are complete nonsense. Medvedev, deputy chair of Russia's Security Council, said in an interview with state media outlet TASS, according to Reuters reporting. We need to act accordingly to respond in full and, if necessary, launch preemptive strikes, he added. Medvedev's comments come just 2 days after President Donald Trump announced secondary tariffs on Moscow by slapping 100% tariffs on nations that purchase Russian oil if the Kremlin does not enter into a peace agreement with Ukraine within the next 50 days. Reports also surfaced this week claiming that Trump had mulled the possibility of Ukraine hitting the Russian capital while in a call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky earlier this month. Kiev would not comment on the issue, and the White House said the question was taken out of context and was not an attempt to encourage further killing. Trump this week said the U.S. would be sending Patriot missiles to NATO nations that would then be routed to Ukraine. And on Wednesday, he suggested the sophisticated weaponry was already en route to Germany. They're already being shipped, Trump told reporters from Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. They're coming in from Germany and then replaced by Germany, and in all cases, the United States gets paid back in full. But the timing of the weapons delivery systems and where exactly they are being routed to remains unclear, as the spokesperson for Germany's defense ministry on Thursday told reporters he had no knowledge of such an incoming shipment. Now we're hearing today, July 21st, 2025, that is underway. So all questions are set aside because now we're hearing this is exactly what's happening this morning, just a couple of hours ago. And we're hearing this is considered a severe escalation in this conflict. We're going to be seeing how Russia responds. And I asked this earlier in the live stream. Now that you're getting more information, let me know your thoughts. What's going to be coming next? Will Russia respond and come to the negotiating table? Will there be diplomacy and peace? If so, put peace in the comments. If you think no, they're going to respond back by escalating the situation, and we could be looking at war. Put war. Let me know your thoughts. Let's take a look at some more video footage coming out on what is unfolding with Russia, NATO, Ukraine, and the United States.
Welcome back, America. We're here with Dan Hoffman, Fox News contributor, former CIA station chief. Now, Dan Hoffman, President Trump seems to me to have really pulled off a brilliant move here. He's gotten NATO to increase their contributions to their own defense, 5%. Nobody thought that was possible. They weren't even paying 2%. Then he gets them to purchase equipment, military equipment from us in order to give Ukraine because Ukraine desperately needs it. What do you make of all this?
Well, I think that it's important that Europe has skin in the game. After all, this is Europe's backyard. Now, make no mistake, the security of Europe is in our national security interest as well. We enjoy $1 trillion worth of trade with Europe. The last thing we need is for Russia to conquer Ukraine, install a puppet regime, and cast their shadow over the rest of Europe. But Europe needs to step up with their own defense of their own continent, and that's what this deal is doing. It's a pipeline. The United States is the arsenal of democracy, something we've been doing since the Second World War. Europe will purchase this equipment, the munitions, the air defense, and get it to Ukraine, and that's actually an excellent solution to the challenge that we face.
You know, I look at this, and then I want to talk about Ukraine and Russia's role, but I look at this, the President of the United States also works out a deal with Ukraine for raw materials, which we desperately need. So he really brings a rare and unique perspective to this, doesn't he? He's not an isolationist, but he's not an interventionist. He uses a lot of common sense. He sees what the Russians, what Putin is doing to Kiev, their other cities they have, despite the fact that he's trying to get them to negotiate some kind of a ceasefire. He looks at Ukraine and he says, look, no more blank checks. We can't afford it anymore. We want access to your raw materials. I mean, have you ever seen anybody like this?
Well, I think what the president and his team are doing is trying to draw lessons learned from U.S. foreign policy during this century. So here's what the president's not doing. We're not going into the Middle East with 200,000 troops to try to do regime change. We are absolutely enforcing or projecting U.S. power in the region to suit our national security interests, but in limited scope to achieve what we want. And there's an economic issue at stake here with the mineral deal, as you said, and then the supply of military arms to Ukraine so they can stay in the fight and continue to fight for their independence. Look, the war could end right now if Vladimir Putin would call off his barbaric attacks on Ukraine. And the president gave Putin every chance to do that, and he hasn't. And so that's the reason why I think we're following this line of policy.
How stable is Putin in terms of his power there? I mean, is he moving around players? Is he worried about some military general? Is he worried about an assassination attempt? How stable is he? Because there's an awful lot of dead Russians.
There are. And look, autocracies, dictatorships by their very nature are brittle. And look, it wasn't just very recently, last couple of years, when we had that mutiny and attempted coup from the head of the Wagner group, Prigozhin. Putin has to be concerned because his war is a failure, resulting in reportedly 1 million casualties. Finland and Sweden are now NATO members. As you mentioned, NATO is now spending, NATO members, most of them up to 5%. That's what they're pledging. They've been awakened from their post-Cold War slumber, and we've got United States leadership on the world stage to help make all of that happen. There's been a brain drain from Russia, roughly 1 million Russians, and Putin is groveling to North Korea, China, and Iran for the military assistance and economic support he needs to carry on the war. But Putin's objective was to overthrow the government of Ukraine and install a puppet regime. He's failed at that, and no one knows it better than his own security services and military. I spent years at CIA trying to see the world through the twisted KGB eyes of Vladimir Putin, recruiting spies and stealing secrets. I can tell you that the guys in Putin's inner circle, they know full well what Putin has done to their country, and that does put Putin at risk from his own people, potentially.
When we come back, the president had also said, look, you have 50 days, now it's less than 50 days, to have.
All right, welcome back in Alive Now. I'm Austin Westfall. Let's get the latest updates out of the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia says that it is open to peace with Ukraine, but achieving its goals remains a priority. That's according to a Kremlin spokesperson on Sunday. He said it days after President Trump gave Moscow a 50-day deadline to agree to a ceasefire or face tougher sanctions. Russian officials have repeatedly rejected accusations from Ukraine and its Western partners of stalling peace talks. We do have Hal Kempfer still here. Hal, the Kremlin says it's open to peace, but let's make something clear. They also want to achieve their goals. They say that's a priority. Remind the people at home, what are Russia's goals, and are their goals compatible with peace?
Well, I would put it this way, Austin. Their idea of peace would be when there's no piece of Ukraine left that's still under Ukrainian control. They still have gone back as recently as this last week, pushing out these absolutist, sort of extreme goals that Ukraine is intrinsically part of Russia. We've heard multiple spokesmen from the Kremlin saying that over and over again. Now they kind of caveat a little bit of this. There's 5 oblasts, which are provinces or like states that they largely control. Some of them they absolutely control, but there are a lot of them they're actually in contention, particularly up in the Donbass region. And they're what they would like to see is that Ukraine simply pulls out of this altogether, basically forsakes that sovereign Ukrainian territory, completely cedes it over to Russia, and that's what they're asking for. Now, first off, Ukraine can't agree to that under their constitution. They cannot agree to just simply give away sovereign territory like that to Russia. The second thing is it's a horrible precedent, and it appears that is not acceptable, certainly to Ukraine, but it's not acceptable to NATO, the European Union membership, and frankly, with the clear shift that we have seen with the Trump administration, it's not acceptable to the United States either. So what he's done is he's gone out there and basically said, yeah, we agree with peace if we get everything that we set out to do, which is a pardon the expression, but it's kind of a nothing burger, if you will. And I think that's how it's going to be received, which is more over-the-top Russian rhetoric about seizing and taking all of Ukraine.
President Trump has repeatedly called for peace in this war. The way he usually phrases it, Hal, is that he wants people to stop dying. But people are still dying, and the war shows no signs of slowing. At what point does this hit a breaking point with the White House?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think there's more likely scenario in what seems to be rolling out. Condoleezza Rice was talking about this too. She sees this as she didn't use the term strategic inflection point, but she sees this as a huge shift in the Trump administration policy, that they're not going to just blindly pursue peace at any price, so to speak, that they are really looking at this and they see the number one problem towards any sort of settlement being Putin and the Kremlin. And so what you're seeing is we've kind of opened up sending our weapons, after that little brief halt of sending weapons recently. We've opened up sending weapons. We've kind of set up a new conduit for sending weapons, a new way to fund sending those weapons using NATO European membership funds to pay for U.S. weapons going over. So all that's happening. A couple other things behind the scenes is most of the 49 M1 Abrams tanks from Australia that were promised to Ukraine have now been delivered. They are in Ukraine. I know that doesn't seem like much, but that could be something critical to maybe getting a breakthrough on some of the front lines that have been rather static for a long period of time there. So what you're seeing is that the U.S. is shifting towards this and really looking towards a change in the military dynamic tied to what's going to happen on the diplomatic side. And frankly, when you're talking peace negotiations and stuff, it's always the military dynamic that drives whatever happens in the diplomatic side. And I say that because a lot of times I'll hear people come out and say, oh, it's just we have to do diplomacy. We have to do diplomacy. It's like diplomacy is simply talking about recognition of what's on the ground or what could happen or what is happening. It doesn't occur in a separate universe away from what's reality is on the ground in terms of where forces are and everything else. So that's why I think we're kind of shifting towards is really focusing on the military side to shift the conditions whereby the discussion can take place.
Who's winning on the battlefield, Hal? Who has the upper hand? I've read recently that the Russians have made some incremental gains during their summer offensive.
If you look at the amount of forces they've put in, they should have made tremendous gains. They are not making much headway at all. They have taken I think they've taken potentially 3 small towns in the last couple of weeks. And keep in mind that when they finally take these towns, there's no Ukrainians there. They've all pulled back and stuff. And in many cases, I'll see these kind of say 3 strategic villages or whatever. And rarely are they all that strategic. It's just a modest gain of ground. What we are seeing, though, is that Ukraine has really ramped up its drone production, not just first-person view drones on the front lines, which they're doing in droves. That is a drone-intensive environment from both sides. But as Russia has launched these massive waves of drones with some missiles into Ukraine, Ukraine has also responded by sending fairly large waves of drones deep into Russia, to include in Moscow. And so that's bringing the war home to Russians. And then the other thing, and maybe it'll take a while before it kind of metastasizes in Russian society, but as you know, in June, they went over 1 million Russian men lost in this war over this 3+ year period. That to me seemed like a pretty impressive, a pretty big number. That's something you can really kind of focus on. You go, wow, this has cost Russia, 1 million men. Most of them killed, some of them, debilitated, if you will. They'll never, certainly removed from the front lines, removed from any military service in Ukraine. But But when you look at that, you wonder how long will it take the Russians to really understand what that means. And I think that loss combined with this growing recession in the Russian economy may have a unique dynamic to put pressure on Putin. Now, I should mention Zelensky has said he wants to have peace talks, and he's actually proposed, and the U.S. has said it as well. They've actually proposed another set of peace talks, potentially in Istanbul. We'll see if that takes place.
Be interesting to see if it does take place. Of course, I also am curious to see if there will ever be a face-to-face meeting between Putin and Zelensky sometime in the near future. Hal Kempfer, we have done 2 segments, and we have a third one coming up. We've got to talk about the Middle East first before we do that.
There you have it, you guys. Wow. Let me know your thoughts. So as I mentioned to you, breaking news coming out today, and that is that the U.S. is sending those Patriot missiles over. It is official. NATO vows an urgent response to Russia. Germany and the U.S. agree to deliver 5 Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine as soon as possible. You can see this coming out today, July 21st. Russia says that NATO is threatening World War III in the latest deterrence plans that could take down the Kaliningrad faster than ever before. And you can see when Donald Trump made those statements about what was going to unfold and is now unfolding today, Russia issued a nuclear warning after Trump's weapons for Ukraine plan. And also, I just shared with you a little while ago that Russia threatened the West with preemptive strikes as NATO looks to deliver Patriots as quickly as possible. So this is all unfolding right now today, July 21st, 2025. Now, I asked everybody to let me know, what do you think is going to unfold? Is anything going to happen? Are we going to see war and conflict? If you think so, put war. If you think no, put peace. Some people saying in the comments, no, they think nothing's going to happen, that Russia's going to back off. There is going to be a ceasefire deal. Let me know your thoughts. Now, somebody also asked, what do we do to make sure that we are prepared? I always say here on the channel, don't be scared, be prepared. I'll make sure that you have the latest information. I believe that knowledge is power, but the application of knowledge is power. So making sure that you and your family have everything set in place just in case the worst happens. I have a list of various resources, Amazon links down below if you want to stock up on certain things and be prepared. I know iodide potassium tablets to protect your thyroid from potential radiation exposure if there was some sort of nuclear bomb, dirty bomb that hit, and maybe you're not necessarily in the blast, but you could get hit with the radiation later on. You could be downwind from it. I think it's like $15-20 if you want it for all ages. That's linked down below along with other resources, considering if communication devices go down. You might want paper maps, things like that you don't think about, batteries, flashlights, various things. If you wanted to stockpile, if you thought things were going to hit here on U.S. soil. So just wanted to mention that. I haven't mentioned that in a while, but I see people asking in the comments, how do I prepare if things do go the route of war and it does come to U.S. soil? And so also in addition to that, protecting your finances, your assets from what could unfold with war, check out today's sponsor, Lear Capital. Information linked in the description below. They've got tons of free information in investing in gold and silver as well. But that is the latest, you guys. Now, I will continue to keep you up to date as more unfolds, but this is the latest as of today, July 21st, 2025, as we're hearing the threats are being issued back and forth. And 1 week after Donald Trump made those threats, he is now in action, sending over those missile defense, those Patriots, to NATO. They're being sold to now be sent to Ukraine to be used urgently and immediately, NATO is saying. So that is the latest. I'll keep you up to speed as more comes out. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.